Thank you, Kehoe. Minister, the former head of the Elite Rangers wing in Chad, Cahill said that poor rates of pay and allowances for enlisted personnel rather than officers were driving personnel out of the Defence Forces. He said the sense of absolute betrayal is palpable, it's visceral. I haven't seen anything even remotely like it in 23 years' service. Have you discussed this issue with the Chief of Staff, Minister of the Defence Forces?
Thank you very much. Minister.
I'm taking question number 8 in the name of Deputy Wallace, question 13 in the name of Deputy Daly, question 15 in the name of Deputy Wallace again, 24 in the name of Brendan Smith, 26 in the name of Deputy Claire Daly, 28 in the name of Deputy Chambers, and 29 in the name of Bernard J. Durkan.
Correct.
That's agreed?
Agreed, yeah, that's agreed, yeah.
I have ongoing discussions with the Chief of Staff regarding the full range of defence issues. As the Deputy will be aware, the current turnover level in the defence sector is 8.1%, which is above the long-term average of 6.3%. This turnover level is posing difficulties for the Defence Forces. Other military organisations internationally are also experiencing similar and in some cases higher overarching turnover levels, particularly among specialist areas. At the rate of turnover within the military organisation can differ across functional areas, the impact of turnover can vary accordingly. This leads to particular challenges in certain areas, and I have previously acknowledged that the Defence Forces are experiencing certain difficulties in recruitment and retention, and highlighted these issues to the Public Service Pay Commission. The economic recovery have provided an opportunity to restore pay to all public servants, including members of the Defence Forces. This is being done in an affordable and sustainable manner in accordance with national public service pay agreements. Members of the Permanent Defence Forces have received the pay increases due from recent national public service pay agreements. The focus of these increases is weighed in favour of those on lower pay. Further increases in pay are scheduled in 2019 and in 2020. By the end of the Public Service Stability Agreement 2018 to 2020, the pay scales of all public servants, including members of the Defence Forces earning under €70,000 per annum, will be restored to pre-FEMPI levels. The restoration of the 5% reduction to allowances to cut FEMPI is also scheduled as part of that agreement. The structure of the Permanent Defence Forces differs significantly from other organisations. The defence sectors have had very hierarchical structures, with almost 50% of personnel at an entry-level rank of private. In addition, there are high numbers in training. This makes average pay an inappropriate indicator of comparative pay rates. Although different comparisons can prove more difficult due to the differing roles and duties undertaken, the pay package available to members of the Defence Forces remain competitive when compared to other public service jobs with similar education and skills requirement. Pay rates for newly qualified members of the Defence Forces are competitive when compared to other areas within the public service and private sector. A newly qualified 3-star private can expect to earn a sum of just €28,000 gross per annum, including military service allowance, but excluding duty allowances. This starting pay is subject to incremental progression up a salary scale and increases to €38,388 per annum at this rank. A newly qualified school leaver entry officer can expect to earn €35,000 614 gross per annum, inclusive of military service allowance, after initial training, and a graduate entry officer can expect to earn €40,000 566 gross per annum, inclusive of military service allowance after initial training. These are entry-level scales. With promotion, the individuals receive higher pay. For example, a corporal starts at €37,632 per annum and rises to €39,000 per annum. A sergeant starts at €40,277 per annum and rises to €42,000 694 per annum. And a sergeant major starts at €51,000 188 per annum and increases to €54,000 611 per annum. For officers, the annual salary scale for a line captain ranges from €49,000 to €239 to €61,000 in 21. A commandant ranges from €61,000 348 to €74,000 to 328, and a colonel of €83,000 389 to €846. These salary scales are inclusive of military service allowance, but exclude duty allowance, which are paid for a range of duties performed. These earnings relate to Army line ranks. In many cases, Air Corps, Naval Service personnel receive additional remuneration per equivalent rank arising for additional allowances for duties performed. Where members of the Defence Forces acquire technical qualifications or fill associated appointments, there is also associated technical pay. Defence Forces personnel also receive a tax-free payment for certain overseas deployments and duties. These are a range of other factors that influence a person's decision to remain in the Defence Forces. These include career progression opportunities, personal development, work-life balance, job stimulation and other work environment. I will continue to work closely with the Secretary-General, the Chief of Staff of the Defence Forces in furthering management responses to address current challenges. There are significant opportunities for career progression and development within the Defence Forces, where there are over 800 promotions in the PDF in 2018 alone. Each promotion, in effect, results in a pay rise. In recognition of the wealth and talent within the enlisted personnel of the Defence Forces, a potential officers course was established last year. This course offered enlisted personnel a clear route in being commissioned officers in the Defence Forces. 24 enlisted personnel completed this course and were commissioned as officers in March of this year. This was the first time in 10 years that the course was offered to enlisted personnel. I very much welcome this and all other opportunities for our personnel to develop their careers in the Defence Forces. I have ensured that further potential officer courses will be taken in 2021 and 2024. The Government is committed to introducing the Working Time Directive in the Defence Forces. Discussions are taking place with the PDF representative associations on this matter. A range of HR initiatives are improving work-life balance, job satisfaction are being progressed by the Defence Forces. The Public Service Pay Commission have concluded an examination of recruitment and retention issues and challenges to the defence sector. The Minister for Finance and Public Expenditure Reform has indicated that he will be bringing this to Government shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Now, some of those who actually put questions down here for this particular session are otherwise engaged this morning with committees, etc. But we have three of you here. I'll commence with Deputy Wallace, then I'll move to Deputy Chambers and Deputy Durkan. The Minister will have a response to reply, and then you'll have opportunity for a second question. If I have time, I'll let you in Deputy Broughan as well. Deputy Wallace. Sorry?
Do I get extra time for having two questions?
You have 1 minute.
What? For two questions?
No, that's the proceedings. You have 1 minute and you'll have a further opportunity to ask
Minister,
the question.
yesterday, yourself and the Taoiseach, you acknowledged that large numbers are leaving the Defence Forces and going to the private sector. But the Taoiseach was adamant that he wasn't going to fast-track any pay restoration, even given the current conditions. All the spiel that you give out there is technical, and I'm sure it's accurate, but it doesn't address the comments of retired Commandant Cathal Berry. Minister, you said that it would not be fair yesterday to single out one group in the public sector above another. But the Defence Forces are being singled out. CSO figures have them as the lowest paid workers in the public service, with 85% earning less than the average industrial wage. That does single them out. If you listen to retired officers speaking out, Minister, what comes out strongly is that they feel that their profession is under attack, that the lack of progress and the fact that things have been allowed to deteriorate this far is actually intentional from their point of view. And you can understand that notion that this is a betrayal. These people do their work, risking their lives, trying to uphold our reputation for peacekeeping as best they can, all for a sense of pride and loyalty in their country. It's a relationship that's been disrespected on your end, Minister, and on the Department's end, and it's going to get worse if you don't address their concerns.
Thank you.
They're not making it up.
Thank you. Deputy Chambers.
Thanks, Kehoe. And as Deputy Wallace said, the recruitment and retention crisis, Minister, has got so serious that you're actually ignoring military advice, military recommendations that were submitted to you as part of the Public Pay Commission process have been ignored and butchered from the report. And that's what undermines the integrity and the independence of the Pay Commission process that would allow for the restoration of allowances that was contained within their submission. Your department butchered and diluted, then you gave it to Deeper for Pascal to take total control of it. And now you're again deflecting and deferring it to him. which is a really worrying concern, the fact that you've actually read the report. I've mentioned throughout today's contribution we've serious levels of poverty, people requiring social payments, and the mass exodus that is occurring, and the historic low levels of morale that you're presiding over, the decimation of capability, the effective strength of the Air Corps, the Naval Service and the Army is just it's a path of destruction on a cliff edge, and we need to have restoration of allowances to address these issues. And again, you have the head in your sand. You have your head in the sand without any. And the fact that you're sitting on the report makes it even worse.
Deputy Durkan.
Can I ask the Minister, given the important role thrust upon the Defence Forces in terms of national security, their reliability and to respond to national emergencies, natural disasters, flooding, snow, isolation, etc., whether, in view of the unique position that they hold and the unique responsibilities they have, it has been possible, in the context of the review now taking place, to identify some means whereby the most serious issues of the case presented by the members of the Defence Forces might be addressed in the shortest possible term.
Thank you very much. Minister, 1 minute.
First of all, I would like to congratulate my colleague Deputy Wallace on his recent success in the European Parliament and wish him the very best of luck. And I've no doubt, I'll miss his our debating here in the chamber. But I'm glad, Deputy Wallace, that you have an absolute interest in this issue, and I applaud you for that. And when you say about the risk to their lives, absolutely. But I believe if you had your way, you mightn't have the Defence Forces participating in any overseas duties, maybe with some of your policies. But I respect your views, and that's the way it is. I have no issue with that whatsoever. Deputy, I'm glad that you said, when you said about the CSO figure for the war, where the CSO figures and the lower paid, they do differ from time to time, let me say, and that was one of the reasons why I instructed, or I asked Minister Paschal Donohoe to prioritise the defence sector as a matter of urgency, to have their case looked at under the Public Service, the Independent Pay Commission. I asked Minister Donohoe to do that. He has the report. I have the report, but it is a matter now for Minister Donohoe to bring that report to Cabinet. It's not my report. It's not my memo. As I've stated, and I addressed this to Deputy Chambers and to Deputy Durkan, that public sector pay is a matter for Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. I don't have that responsibility. If I had that responsibility, we don't have different countries differ. So I'm waiting the outcome of the report, to see the contents of the report, and for everybody to be able to then to make a decision on it.
Thank you. Now, could I say to the three deputies who have already spoken, can you keep your questions as brief as possible? I want to allow Deputy Broughan in with a short question at the end. So, Deputy Wallace.
Minister, you gave 60 million extra to defence last year in the budget. It materialised into a 4% increase in pay for personnel, but a 37% increase on spend on equipment. This is where the money is going. And instead of addressing the points that are driving people out of the Defence Forces, you're throwing money at things like new boats for the Navy. The National Development Plan includes provision for a huge $541 million capital investment for defence over the period 18 to 22. The Navy plans to up its complement of ships from 8 to 9, with the LA George Bernard Shaw due to come on stream in 19, having cost $67 million. Despite the Navy not having enough crew for 8 ships, let alone 9 last year. On top of this, they plan to spend $200 million on a multi-role vessel for reasons that have been less to do with the Navy being able to fulfil its day-to-day duties and much more to do with trying to impress our European colleagues in the Mediterranean. The multi-role vessel, Minister, will be capable of carrying a battalion of soldiers along with landing craft and will have freight capacity for military vehicles. What in God's name, Minister, do we need those for? You'd be better off paying the soldiers.
Deputy Chambers. 1 minute.
So you're saying you asked Minister Donoghue to prioritise the defence sector. We had serious delays in the process around the Public Pay Commission. Now you have the report. Now he has the report. Can you tell us what is going on between you and your department and between his department? It's highly unusual that when there's such an urgent need to address the issues around allowances and when there's such concerns about a report, that we have this vacuum and this delay. And I think you need to show some leadership in the area. If you're not happy with the report, you should say that on the record of the Dáil. Take on Minister Donoghue and actually deal with the issue in terms of pay and allowances, rather than giving this circle of bureaucracy between you and your department and memos, and it's for him to bring it to Cabinet. Show some leadership. Represent and give a bit of respect and dignity to the Defence Forces personnel, rather than giving us this cycle of waffle around him having a memo and you not having it. You've read it, he's read it, deal with the report.
Durkan.
Thank you, Kehoe. Again, given the responsibilities in respect of national security and in fact maybe international security and overseas deployments that the Defence Forces have, can I ask the Minister, notwithstanding what he's already said to the House in relation to bringing forward the report, the recommendations of the report, could he see a situation arising whereby continued erosion of the strength of the Defence Forces and continued erosion of the morale of the Defence Forces might result in an issue that might need fairly urgent treatment in terms of addressing the most potent issues as identified by both sides in the course of the debate that has taken place?
Deputy Broughan.
I think, Minister, one of the fundamental problems is that defence is not at the Cabinet table, that you're not a full Cabinet Minister. I mean, there's no reason why we still shouldn't have a Minister for Defence and perhaps for security generally with An Garda Síochána. I just wanted to raise with you very briefly, in case I don't get another chance, that the incredibly low level of pensions and gratuities for Óglaigh na hÉireann. For example, after 10 years pensionable service, your pension would work out, if you're on an income of say €42,000, your pension would be the princely sum of €2,141 a year. Your gratuity would work out at €15,000. After 20 years pensionable service, and your pensionable pay is €45,000 a year, your pension would work out the princely sum of just over €5,000 a year, and the gratuity as just over €35,000. I mean, compared to the rest of the public service, these are incredibly low figures, Minister. I think they reflect the general fact that the Defence Forces are the Cinderella of the public service. Levels of pay, I know you've read out the figures there throughout the ranks, but they're totally unacceptable.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Now we've almost 18 minutes of debate.
I'll answer
keep as briefly as you can, Minister.
I'll answer Deputy Broughan first. He has a comprehensive reply going back to him that will answer all your questions there. To Deputy Chambers, you spoke there about the report that went from the military and military management and the civil submission that went to the Pay Commission. There was nobody muzzled in any way. In actual fact, the Chief of Staff of the Defence Forces had an opportunity himself to address the Pay Commission. So he had the opportunity to say whatever he wanted to say to the Pay Commission. I arranged that through the Pay Commission, or through the Independent Pay Commission, to allow that. So there was nobody muzzled in any way. Absolutely. So did somebody go in and say you cancel this, you cancel it again? Absolutely. He had the free will to say whatever he wanted to say, along with the Secretary General of the Department. Whatever they wanted to say, they were absolutely, along with PD4, along with RACO, all the unions, our representative associations, had the opportunity to speak face-to-face time with the Pay Commission, and I understand they did do that. Okay. Deputy Wallace, you spoke about the investment, and the investment I am very proud of, absolutely, into the equipment, into the ships, into our planes, into the refurbishment of MOAGs. But also, Deputy, you did not recognise the €6 million there was also in budget 2019 for pay increases. So you failed to recognise that. No, you failed. I did not interrupt you in any way.
Without interruption.
Okay. There was €6 million in pay increase, and you failed to acknowledge that. So you did. To answer Deputy Durkan, we are expecting a Pay Commission report very shortly. As soon as that comes to Cabinet, I have the copy of the report. It will be considered. It's a report that's been bought by the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform. I do not have the responsibility for court pay across the public service. That is a matter for the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, and it is the responsibility of Minister Pascal Donoghue. And we will look at the report, consider the findings of the report, recommend implement the recommendations in the report, and whatever has to be considered after that, we will do so.
Thank you. Can you just clarify in one word? Have you got the report? Members have asked. Have you got the report?
I said that my first reply. I said I have a copy of the report, but it's not my report.
Okay, that's
Chairman.
fine.
I think, Chairman. I think it's very. You asked me a question.
Yeah, just one word. Have you the report?
No. I think I have to follow. But it's not my report to bring to Cabinet. That is the report of the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform, Minister Pascal Donoghue.
I just want clarification. And thank all members of the Minister for their cooperation on this issue. I know it's a difficult issue.